About the book, it's a history of 98 years of the publication Pratap, followed by Vir Pratap. We started, as you said, in 1919, a few days before the Jallianwala massacre, and we were promptly shut down by the British, and we were not allowed to print again for full 1 year. Then once we started, and it was, the paper got sold immediately. From 1919 to 1947, we had a constant struggle with the British Raj. Our editors, which is my father and my grandfather, were constantly jailed. The publication was stopped, censorship was imposed, fines were huge fines of 3,000, 5,000, which was a princely sum at that time, was imposed on us, and all kinds of problems were created. But we carried on because we were fighting for a cause. My father was also, Virendra was also a revolutionary. He was part of the group of Bhagat Singh and Chandrasekhar Azad. And in fact, he was in the Lahore Central Jail on 23rd March 1931, the day Bhagat Singh was hanged. So that account of that day and subsequent day is also in the book. So this book basically writes about the story, and the story is connected with the newspaper and its people behind them. And I'd like to tell your viewers that once when the censorship was imposed on us, the person who came to Lahore to fight for our cause was none other than Jawahar.
I think it's a good time to actually show the book and the cover. This is, I think it's easy for people to remember. Having said, my father has given the historical context to the book. I'd also like to add that it is extremely timely the last few days, what we've seen when it comes to the media and how the media has covered the Indo-Pakistan tension, the kind of misinformation and fake news. So this book begins from 1919 and a newspaper that stood for all the right values of what journalism and media stands, and it ends with where very timely the broken Indian media. And I think we've seen it in all its inglory, if that's a word, in the last couple of days. And so it's the big. It's also very timely, as I said, because it looks at why the media has reached where it has today.
You'll share some nuggets from the book and tell us a little bit about the journey of the paper.
Sure. Baba, you want to go ahead?
No, you go.
So there are many parts, but first, because I mentioned the media and I know which pages those are exactly, I want to read out just 2 lines, or just about something that is so relevant, and that is what has been happening for the last few days. Every evening, television channels, at least the usual suspects, peddle polarizing narratives and misinformation with as much consistency as the weather report, a downsliding when editors abandon their journalistic oath. There's also something about the fact checkers, but there is one other line that I actually wanted to speak about. The viewer, meanwhile, is treading around minefields of fake news, propaganda, and misinformation. With artificial intelligence also in the mix, some days truth is stranger than fiction. The genie is well and truly out of the bottle. To quote a refrain that originated in a newsroom, if one person says it's raining and another says it is not raining, it is your job to look out the window and find out which is true. The windows of most Indian newsrooms are closed, and I think they've been firmly shut in the last 2 to 3 days with the kind of misinformation and fake information that all the big news channels have been peddling. Islamabad capture ho gaya hai, Karachi port demolish ho gaya hai, pilots have been captured left, right and center, and that is what has been unfortunate, is that nobody has actually apologized for any of the misinformation that they have peddled. So this book is timely on many fronts. I'm going to read out from a chapter that is very close to my father. This is going back in time to Mahatma Gandhi and his role vis-a-vis the revolutionaries, and whether he could save Bhagat Singh. He could have saved Bhagat Singh or not. So first, I'd like him to actually speak about it, and then maybe I can read, or he can read a few lines from it. Father?
We have idolized both Mahatma Gandhi and we've idolized Bhagat Singh. But we do feel that the Mahatma, the great Mahatma, our Mahatma, in fact, didn't do as much to save the lives of the three brave hearts, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev, as much as he could. Gandhiji was against non-violence, was for non-violence, agreed. But what could be more violent than hanging three young men by the neck? Why didn't Gandhi put his foot down? At that time, Gandhiji was involved with Lord Irwin for some kind of pact, which came through ultimately. And under the pact, all the political prisoners were released, but not the revolutionaries. That included these three young men, as also our father. The revolutionaries were not even considered. And then they were hanged. I mean, considering what Gandhiji had done for the country, Gandhiji done for non-violence, I, for one, would have liked him to sort of put his foot down that if you want a pact with me, at least don't hang them. What could be more violent than hanging three people? So that was a chapter, because we've all idolized Gandhiji, abhi bhi kar rahe hain hum sab. To write something against Gandhi was very troublesome for me, but I do feel that with that one juncture, Gandhiji let the country down. And then he faced the consequences also, because immediately after that, there was a Karachi session where black flags were shown to him. A reader has asked, what could he have done? My reply would be that he could have walked out of the Irwin Pact. Subhash Bose has written probably that Irwin came to understand that Gandhi will not be obstinate or stubborn about the three young men, so he went ahead. But I do feel that Gandhiji should have done more for them.
So I'll read out. My father just mentioned Subhash Bose. So I'm going to read out some lines of his from the Indian struggle. Pressure was brought to bear on the Mahatma to save the lives of the young men, and it must be admitted he tried his best. On this occasion, I ventured the suggestion that he should, if necessary, break with the Viceroy on the question, because the execution was against the spirit, if not the letter, of the Delhi Pact. But the Mahatma, who did not want to identify himself with the revolutionary prisoners, would not go so far. And it naturally made a great difference when the Viceroy realized that the Mahatma would not break on this question. Bose adds, so far as the Mahatma was concerned, he had to make his conscience somewhat elastic. In response to the Viceroy's concession that at best he could do was to delay the hanging till after the Karachi session, Gandhi replied that if the executions must happen, let them take place before the Congress congregation. Was Gandhi compelling in persuading the British to take another look at the death sentence, or was the pact with Lord Irwin all-consuming? It is common knowledge that he was willing to take a longer route to independence rather than compromise on his ideals. Historians differ in this outlook, but there is a line of thought that while Gandhi tried to save the men, he did not owe the revolutionaries enough to jeopardize the pact and the release of political prisoners.
One doesn't want Gandhiji to go against his ideals, but I thought that going against hanging of three young men would be sort of part of his program, because nothing could be more violent than that. So that was a very difficult chapter to write for us, because, as I said, one has idolized Gandhiji, and I still feel very strongly that he could have done more for them. But the country has been fortunate that we had Gandhi and we had Bhagat Singh, both martyred to the cause, one for communal peace, one for the freedom of the country. I mean, we've been very, very fortunate.
There is The other, I think, it's not interesting, but the other thing that what we write when what we'd written about is the day of Bhagat Singh's hanging, and because my grandfather was in prison on the same day, and I think there are very few witness accounts that have come out of the time from the jail. So, Papa, you want to elaborate on that as well?
Yeah. Well, he writes that they were prisoners. They would be locked up at about 7 p.m. every evening. They were told that the hanging would be on 24th March, but that evening they were locked up by about 4 p.m. and they did not know what was happening. Till a barber named Barkat came running with tears in his eyes, and he said, "Sab kuch khatam ho gaya." That it's over now, and he told them that the three would be hanged in the evening. Hanging was always done in the morning. It was never done in the evening. But in this case, they were hanged in the evening, and through the back door, their bodies were taken out. And these people were locked up. And when the three came out, they were raising the slogan of Inqilab Zindabad. And this was the entire jail, one barrack after the other, echoed with Inqilab Zindabad, and the whole jail was, echoing with Inqilab Zindabad. And then they were taken to the Pansighar, and where they were hanged, and then the bodies were taken out. So that was a very traumatic day for the country, for the prisoners who were there and the comrades who were there. And my father asked Barkat कि उनकी कोई निशानी ले आओ. So he got a comb and a pen. Comb was with my father, and pen was his co-prisoner, is Ehsan Ilahi. Those were actually, our comb at least was lost during the period of partition when everything was left in Lahore. But that was also a very remarkable period. And those people, there's a very interesting episode of the life of Bhagat Singh, that Chandrasekhar, who led the revolutionaries, used to give them all 4 anna a day for their food. And Bhagat Singh was very fond of going to the cinema. So and Chandrasekhar would say that tu pakada jayega to cinema hall mein pakada jayega. In any case, Bhagat Singh goes to the cinema, and his 4 annas are spent on the ticket. And he doesn't have money for the food that day, and didn't have the guts to ask Chandrasekhar Azad, give me 4 more annas. And then somebody, of course, helped him out of it. But look at those people. They didn't have 4 annas. And look at the passion. Look at the passion. Look what the Bhagat Singh has achieved. He says he's going to be a legend forever in this country. And he didn't have 4 annas for his food. And didn't have the guts to ask Chandrasekhar Azad for that 4 annas. Aajkal ke log, if you compare them with the people we have today, we have a lot of people, at least in this part of the country, Punjab, wearing yellow turbans and things like that. Bhagat Singh never wore a yellow turban. His turban was either white or he wore a hat. And all this, this is a fake heroism that we see in his name. Being politicized and things like that. But look at the commitment of the man. Look at the intellect of the man. Look what he wrote. It's all a very astounding story which we have put in the book now.
Someone has just asked, why do we only speak about these 3 people? Which is precisely why this book is there, because this book is not just about Bhagat Singh, Rajguru or Sukhdev. This is our attempt to also speak about people like my grandfather, who were part of the freedom struggle, who were part of, they were peers, and they were the people who connected the dots in the background, whether it is, trying to, there was a shooting of the governor. How did that happen? The background story of the people who are working in the background to help the freedom struggle, the movements, the episodes that happened. There were many people, there were many, chains and chains that were happening at the background, and he is one of them. And this is our attempt to bring the story out further to a lot of the unsung heroes of the freedom struggle, because there are, like you're asking, there are other stories as well.
There's a story of Jitendra Das and how he died, because of his Bhukh Hartal, hunger strike. His entire story is there. Kiran Das's story is there. But Keshwar Dutt's story is there. Sheila Didi's story is there. All these stories are there. So this is, I mean, we are not trying to give entire gamut of history of that period. We are not even attempting to do that. We are giving that stories that touch the lives of our people and our newspaper. There's a lot of about Jalandhar in it. Also about Subhash Chandra Bose. So all that is given. I mean, we are not even attempting to give a full history of 100 years.
It's also important to remember how young all of them were. You know, today when we look at how old was Bhagat Singh? He was pretty young, isn't it?
23 years old.
3 years old. So you know, it is remarkable that they managed to reach that kind of thinking and lay down their lives and do sacrifices on a day.
No, it's not only his sacrifice, but also what he wrote and is what is left. I asked the late Kuldeep Nair, who wrote a book on Bhagat Singh, and I said, by the age of 23, he's written so much. Is it all written by him? He said yes, because he used to read a lot. Saying in the prison, he used to read a lot, and his nieces said that when he was about to taken to the Pansiga, he was reading the biography of Lenin, and he said, "Let me finish the chapter of whatever." So, I mean, it's amazing that the man had so much intellect, and he was conscious of that. That whatever he's doing, he has to put across to the nation, and he was constantly, like we are having the defense. The press conference these days regarding the war, he was constantly putting out his views. He wanted to educate the people of India. He wanted to put his views across, and he was doing it all the time.
Tell us of some more, remarkable episodes that were captured in your papers and over the last more than 100 years that you think left an impact on the readers of the Times?
Well, I think a very impactful incident was when the parcel bomb was sent to us during the period of terrorism in Punjab. 25th June 1983. A parcel bomb was sent to us. 2 people died in our office. And that was another very difficult chapter to write. In fact, when Jyotsna said, let's write this book, I said, ye chapter likhna, is going to be very tough for me, because having gone through that traumatic period, I didn't want to revisit it. The killings of 2 young men and their widows and their children and their families and things like that. And that whole period of militancy, we written, because we went through it. We were targeted again and again. Our children like Jyotsna and her siblings were to be taken off the school with a threat to kidnap them. So that story is also there, what we went through, because there is a perception that the Punjab problem started with Blue Star and then the Indira Gandhi's assassination and those horrific riots in Delhi and other places, anti-Sikh riots, which is not in fact, it started 5 years earlier when innocents were killed, brought out of their buses and almost like what has happened in Pahalgam.
Yeah, actually.
Killed according to their religion. So that period, and then of course the tanks going into one of the most sacred places of India, the Golden Temple. This should have been avoided. Why wasn't it avoided? Why was Virendra allowed to enter the Darbar Sahib, the Kal Takht? All that we have raised and tried to give our point of view. People may not agree. In fact, some have even questioned us. In Amritsar, we went for a book event. Some questioned us about it, but it's fine. This is our point of view because we went through it. we were targeted, and we know how tough it was. At that time, people used to say, "Ke aap Punjab chhod jao." And our reaction was that we've been displaced once from Lahore. We are not going to be displaced again. So that was another, I think, a remarkable inside story of the period of militancy of those who went through it, who faced their bullets. Because, we written about the emergency also. Facing the emergency and facing the militancy were two different things. फेसिंग द इमरजेंसी क्या कर ले, ज्यादा से ज्यादा जेल में डाल देंगे, जेल में डाला, हमें नहीं डाला, कईयों को डाला, पेपर बंद कर सकते हैं, सेंसरशिप कर सकते हैं, but facing the militancy you don't know where the next bullet is going to come from, where the next bomb is going to come from. If you go to office, you're not sure where you're going to return home, and it has a lot of effect on the family. So that was another chapter which we have written in from the parcel bomb and other things that happened with us. And not only with us, but other newspapers, also other people also suffered. Some a magistrate was killed in Jalandhar. So all that is also there.
So the newspaper was actually launched, just to go back to that, just a few days before the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and was promptly shut down by the British because of it supported Gandhi's policies and its nationalist tenor. So it was promptly shut down, so much so that it was not allowed to report on the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and it basically just lasted 12 days before it was suspended for an entire year. And censorship laws were imposed on the paper. When it came back after a year, it was sold out the very same day again. But the British kept penalizing it constantly. And at that time, I think every time they had to pay up fees, whether it was 2,000 to 5,000, it was such a huge sum in those days. So it was constantly under the British radar. And I think that gives you a sense of the editors of the newspaper on their thinking, because they started from the British time going through this with the British Raj. So they were very clear, whether it is my father, my grandfather, or my great grandfather, that itna kuch dekh liya hai from the British. Now we're not going to, we never bowed to the British. We're not going to bow down in independent India. But it's been a rough ride. It's been a historic ride, and it's been a rough ride.
Yeah, it's been a tough life. I mean, if you're anti-establishment by nature, then it's bound to be a tough life. But then, as our grandfather said, that we are not vendors of news. So we are not, a newspaper is just not vendor of news. You have to have your views, you have to have your policies, you have to have your principles. So at that time, I think there was a cause. The cause was the independence of the country. So that brought out the best in men. Like we had mentioned the episode of attempted shooting of the governor. This little fellow, Harkishan, he was got from Peshawar, and he tried to shoot the governor, but the governor escaped because he was standing on a rickety chair. So they were not terrorists, they were not professional shooters. Even Bhagat Singh, for that matter, Bhagat Singh and Chandrasekhar Azad, they wanted to shoot Scott, who was instrumental in the lathi charge on Lala Lajpat Rai. They ended up by shooting Saunders mistakenly, because they were not professionals. They were passionate. Josh bahut tha, hosh thoda kam tha. Then people, they have died, their friends have died trying to make bombs and things like that. So all that struggle is there. Little stories are there, and people have been coming to us and to tell us, "Ye to humne jante nahi, ye to humne pehle padha nahi, this we haven't read earlier." So that whatever has been touched around the newspaper and the people connected with that we have given in this book.
So my father mentions the Saunders case, and that is part of the other story that runs parallel. That is of my grandfather, who was first arrested for the Saunders case. I think he was 17 or 18 years of age. And I think that was the first of his 8 or 9 jail terms during the British. By the time he was 22, he'd been in jail 8 or 9 times. From the Saunders case onwards, which was, I think, he just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Uh, to till I think 1942, he was in jail, Papa.
Yeah, 9 times in jail, starting with the age of 18. First time 18, pulled by his hair and tortured and, dragged in the British Thana and things like that. And, he was released after a few months. Then again, the van came in front of the house, and my grandfather got fed up of the police van coming again repeatedly in front of the house. They'll come and search the house, search my grandmother's room also, and my father's room. So this continued, but they were different people. That was a different time. They had the cause in front of them. The cause was the freedom of the country. And as I said, it brought out the best in them. There is also a very interesting episode of when censorship was imposed, Jawaharlal Nehru came and he had a letter fight with the Premier of Punjab, Sir Sikandar Hayat Khan. Sir Sikandar Hayat Khan said, "You are unfit to be the son of such an eminent person," and Nehru called him conceited and arrogant. So that exchange between the two of them is that's a large exchange. That's also, I think, that would interest the people interested in journalism.
There's also the fact that Jawaharlal Nehru became the first Indian politician to ever use an aeroplane for campaigning. And coincidentally, it was my grandfather who organized the plane and was on that plane with him as he campaigned to Sialkot and other places in what was undivided Punjab at that point. The newspaper was not sold; it was just closed down. Someone just asked. We still have the brand; it's still ours. We never sold it to anybody. So they're very interesting snippets on personal lives of freedom fighters, personal lives of there's a somewhat of a ringside view into Jawaharlal Nehru himself, his thinking. What goes, him behind the scenes, so to speak. Many such anecdotes that you don't read in history or history books. But this newspaper was for 98 years. It has covered big phases of India's history. We had to pick and choose what we wanted because we didn't have that much of. We were, we had to put this into 80,000. We'd anyway gone into 90,000, and we had to cut down. So whatever we could fit in. If people asked, there were other phases or episodes or incidents in India's history, but we've tried to pick what we thought would work for us and the book.
Other than the independent, how was the reporting at the time of independence? Take us through some of those moments, that are landmark moments for the country, and tell us a little bit of what went behind the scenes at that time, and what was the kind of setup at the newspaper. What were the, what were the ordinary goings on that might not have been captured in the paper, but somewhere in your records and so on?
Those was different time, different newspaper, different circumstances, and Urdu newspaper was, calligraphed. जिसे किताबत कहते हैं. It was done like that. Reporting was done, and in fact, there's a very interesting episode of our reporter from Allahabad sending a wire. Those days it was a wire. That there are rumors of Nehru's second marriage. So my father debated whether to put it on or not. Then he's, I think wiser. He became wiser, and he sent a wire to Nehru too that our Allahabad reporter saying that you are getting remarried. Please clarify. And Nehru replied, utter nonsense. So there were reporters. There were people in our establishment. One or two were also doing spying for the British because they were with every newspaper. but things were not so professional in a way as you see today, because everything had to be handwritten. So there's a limit to how much you can put in. But there was passion. There was a lot of passion, which you don't see any these days now. Because, as I said, you were fighting for a cause, and the cause was the independence of the country. There were many journalists who were imprisoned, writers, poets. Bismillah. He was hanged. Lot of people, but a lot of people from journalism. I won't call it media. Journalism, patrikarita, as they were said, were freedom fighters, and they would report things, and that is why Pratap used to be banned so much, because Pratap used to tell the truth to his readers. So that is why it was constantly banned also.
Also, there was integrity that time. But
Yeah.
Pratap, from what I have read and I have learned, is that had an enormous network of correspondence even before independence. And our research showed that once the paper started again after independence in Jalandhar, it sold even more initially than it had in Pakistan. And it did have a very, very big viewership. I won't say Pakistan, I'd say in previous, India, including the Northwest Frontier Province and Lahore and other places. It was the point for everybody to read. I mean, our book begins with a praise from Gulzar, and if I could just read what Gulzar Sahab has written, I think it sums it up. I remember the Urdu newspaper Pratap with great nostalgia. I was very young at the time. The elders would gather in Delhi's Roshan Ara Bagh every morning and discuss the headlines in great detail. Pratap was like a freedom flag in the battle for independence. It was respected like the conscience of India. I think that sums it up for the newspaper.
So, do you have any older copies? Is there an archive? Are there, is there a consistent archive? Or are there at least some special?
Everything was lost in Lahore.
Okay. And what about after independence when you
There
started?
we have. But the major part of the struggle was pre-independence. We suddenly had to leave Lahore. The office was left, the residence was left, everything was left in Lahore.
And no attempt was made to see if that could be retrieved?
No, we didn't succeed. We didn't succeed. Sometimes some old reader would send us a copy, or send, even in India sometimes. But we don't have any copies of what was pre-independence, because everything was lost.
And how wide was the readership, viewership, how the geographical reach of the papers?
At that time, as Jyotsna said, we went up to the Northwest Frontier. We have a book, a letter from Badshah Khan, Abdul Ghaffar Khan, commenting on the newspaper. So he must have been reading about it. Then, so that the area of Punjab, Northwest, wherever, because
Kashmir.
the paper had to be sent by the trains. There's no other way of sending them. So wherever, sometimes it is some places it will reach after 2 days. But people would still read, because, people wanted news, independent news. So, but people were used to this kind of thing. It's not, they didn't expect instant news like we do it now. So that was how it was those days. Those were the. But even at that time, I think we've been told that the circulation was over 20,000, which is a huge number for pre-independency times.
Yeah, I met somebody. I met somebody at a lunch. He was from Rajouri, or he used to live in Rajouri. And he was mentioning how he grew up reading the paper. So it was across North, widely read, and Delhi.
And there was a question right in the beginning as to how how you came about. If you can tell a little bit about how the different language versions came about, and what drove that. You had the Hindi and the Urdu, and
We realized after independence that Urdu readership is going to fall because in Punjab, Urdu was not the main language, which was replaced by Punjabi and Hindi. So that's how Hindi came from a very small beginning, because Hindi then catered not only to Punjab, but it catered to Himachal Pradesh and Haryana and Jammu. That is how Hindi came up. Because Urdu, if a reader dies, you don't get another reader. If a sub-editor dies or a calligraphist dies, you don't get another. Especially in this part of the country. You may get them in UP or Maharashtra or somewhere else. But in this part of the country, you don't get another one. So running an Urdu paper became more and more difficult. That is why Hindi came up.
tell us a little bit about who were the other newspapers. So I have two questions. One, who were the other newspapers? Maybe they were your competitors, or maybe they were just other newspapers who were also popular at the time. And also tell us a little bit, about the format of the newspaper. What did it have? Were there any special columns by some people? Was there poetry? Was there, general? So just a little bit about the format. So these are my two questions.
The other newspapers, when we came from Pakistan, from Lahore, the other competitors were Milap and then Hindi Milap. Then followed by Hind Samachar and Punjab Kesari. And in Punjabi, you had Ajit and Akali Patrika and Naya Zamana, which was started by the Communist Party of Punjab, and which played a valiant part during the period of militancy. They lost a lot of people also. They were very, very courageous during opposing militancy. The Naya Zamana and its editor, the late Jagjit Singh Anand. The newspaper pre-partition, I have no idea what kind of columnists they have.
Yeah.
I doubt if they had many. But I do, I understand there were people writing shairi, which is Urdu poetry. And maybe there were a few, things were not that organized as they are today, And later on, after partition, of course, then they were in Hindi, used to have a page on Sahitya, literature, on film, on sports, that kind of thing started later on. But initially, during the period of pre-independence, yes, it was a different period because the entire concentration was on getting rid of the British. And one reader, as Aja Star, was the influence of Arya Samaj, definitely. My grandfather was the president of Arya Samaj, and my father was also president of Arya Samaj. There was definitely influence of Arya Samaj and healthy influence of Arya Samaj, because that made you more liberal in many ways, and we mentioned it also in the book.
It was an Urdu newspaper to begin with, which is an evening newspaper. And then I think it became like a regular morning daily. But I have this part from pre-independence where Pakistani scholar and poet Abdul Majid Salik, he writes in his biography that not long after Lala Lajpat Rai took out the Urdu newspaper Bande Matram, Krishan launched the daily Pratap. Zamindar, Inqilab and Siyasat, though each other's rivals in many respects, forged a common front against Hindu hierarchy, while singling out Pratap, Bande Matram, Kesari and Milap as the Hindu contemporaries. But these newspapers also came out in Urdu.
And it's something that was very interesting, that all these respected editors of Pratap, Milap, like people like Lala Lajpat Rai, they were fighting for a cause, but they were also fighting among themselves. they were, they're pulling each other's legs, and that through the newspaper, that which probably made it more interesting because there were little difference in opinions also there. But together for the final and the main cause.
So in Punjab, if a report was not published in the Urdu press, it was not credible enough from an Indian nationalist perspective. With Persian having transitioned to Urdu for administration during the Raj, the language itself was a composite cultural bridge of a people oppressed. As Mahatma Gandhi extolled the press to express their opinion freely, Urdu journalists and editors did not disappoint him. The landscape of the Urdu press was divided between Hindu and Muslim owners when Pratap was born. Despite public perception and more so now for vested interests, Urdu as a language of Muslims alone has been a grandstanding fallacy.
Yeah, I know my parents and my grandparents all spoke and read and wrote Urdu, so absolutely true. And what about, sorry, what was my other question to you? Your competitors and your format. So what else? You said that there was some poetry, but were there also stories, or was it so driven by so especially post independence? Because I'm sure that the cause changed after independence. Must have become perhaps social causes and the needs for developing and growing the country. So anything interesting you can tell us from that time?
The emergency.
The emergency, of course.
We started, first we gave blank pages, especially for editorials.
Mhm.
And then we were told that you can't run blank pages. Though my father said, I have never got my editorial censored by the British, I'm not going to get them censored by you. So instead of the editorial, he started writing his life history there, his revolutionary history, on which a lot of things in the book are based on, how they made bombs and things like that. And, in his 9 jail yatras, as he would say, and his comrades, and, Durga Bhabi and Shushila Didi and all those people. So that period was also there, the defiance of the emergency, that right, if you're not allowing us to write our free editorial, then we will not publish our editorial. That was a price to be paid because Pratap was read mainly because of its editorial content. That brought readership down quite a bit because, your views are not there. But for all those months of emergency, there were no editorials in our paper. So that was another interesting thing. But post-independence, one thing that defined us was anti-establishment to a fault. Pick up, fight with one government or the other all the time. That affects your economy, your finances, but that's what we were. So that was sort of our DNA, anti-establishment. So that DNA continued till the end. That is the story of the papers.
Someone's asked any known journalist pre-independence, so I'll have to say that maybe you'll have to see if there's something that Google's on my great-grandfather's name, Mahashay Krishan, because I think he was one of the biggest names in journalism during British India. I think, उनकी पेन से डरते थे लोग.
He had the Tribune editor, Kalidas.
Oh, yeah, Kalidas.
So he was also, great crusader against the British. So they were the two famous names of that time, Mahashay Krishan and the Tribune editor.
Okay, I may as well read Malhar's question as well. He says that for someone who's born after the emergency, there's a perspective that he's not dwelled on before. Militancy versus emergency and the concept of freedom and all the movements versus our mindset is with the vis-a-vis freedom now.
So it's not a question, Sukhi.
It's just a statement. It's just a statement. It's a comment.
Where Chanderji mentioned earlier regarding how it was during militancy and the bullets, and how it was during the emergency and the jail. And that analogy is something that was something probably I did not think from that perspective. It was about curbing of freedom, but I guess this perspective was something which was very different to hear and know, and that just started me thinking about more about this aspect of militancy versus emergency.
The cost of democracy. What tell us any other post emergency? Emergency also sometimes you realize is now many decades since then. Tell us about anything else between then and Operation Blue Star, which you said you've talked about. Any other important events in the country that you
No, I think we only cover up post independence. We only cover two things. One is the militancy, and then the emergency, and then the chapter on media and the decline of the media.
No, you may not cover in your book, but your own experiences. We're looking for all that as well, not just your book. We have the two.
Well, that's a long story. There are a lot of little things one comes across, and a lot of people that you meet, other Atal Bihari Vajpayee or Manmohan Singh or whatever, but some, even Nitin Gadkari, some things are best left unsaid. And basically, the book is about the newspaper, 98 years, and what touched it. We shut down in 5 years ago. 8 years ago. Till that time, whatever we went through and what we thought was significant, that we have given. People have asked that आपने ये नहीं लिखा, आपने इसके बारे नहीं लिखा, and all that. Fair enough. There may be other, events that we didn't. There were awards. We are going through, sort of war at the moment. Luckily, I believe the peace. They said that there's going to be a ceasefire now. So we witnessed wars. We witnessed repeated blackouts, 65, 71, and things like that. All that we were covered. That period also could have been, taken in, but this is what we thought would be important for the time being. Maybe another book, we don't know. Who knows? But at the moment, the next item on the agenda is the translation for Hindi. With a lot of people asking, Hindi mein chahiye, humko Hindi mein chahiye. So maybe that's the next for us.
I could read out a couple of lines from our introduction. I think that sums up the book, actually. Pratap was launched in Lahore just days before the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. The popularity and support it received was unprecedented. Its editorials were hard-hitting and its tone intrepid and unapologetically nationalist. In this book, we have attempted to revisit editions of Pratap from yesteryears and through them share a glimpse of significant proceedings, public debates, and at times existential questions. Pratap's ringside view of events leading to India's independence is only second to what Virendra, that's my grandfather, witnessed. His journey had a detour of 19 years that he dedicated to India's freedom. During this time, he was jailed 9 times by the British and was a hardened member of the revolutionary club led by Chandrasekhar Azad and Bhagat Singh. What metal were our freedom fighters made of? They unflinchingly stared at or down at death while bearing all emotions to unshackle India from the Raj. Virendra's life is not just an eyewitness account of a momentous past, but also gives us an insider peek into the lives with the hits and misses, and from time to time the martyrdom of young revolutionaries as they inspired a nation. Former Prime Minister Inder Kumar Gujral wrote, "Very few have recorded the events that they helped in shaping or what they saw from close quarters. Virendra had one advantage, his association with a leading newspaper, Pratap, whose influential editorials, couched in an intimate, personalized style, was shaping the attitudes of an entire generation. Pratap's editors before Virendra and since remained equally resilient. The significant occurrences that the book traces touched them and the fearless newspaper they shaped through three generations. Punjab in the 80s and 1990s, when people didn't know if they would return home for their next meal. Among them were Virendra and his family. A defining moment that the book touches on is the phase of terrorism in Punjab that brought a flourishing state to its knees. During these decades, Pratap and the family found themselves prominently targeted. There was disbelief. From Lahore to Jalandhar, the journey of 136 kilometers may have begun with a single step, but there were footsteps in independent India which still brought dread. Over many lost years, a Hindi newspaper, Vir Pratap, that was started after partition, was a constant target of terrorists, and family members had more than a few providential escapes. In Free India, Pratap, through its editorials, and Virendra, through his pen, carried on without faltering, whether it was the hit list of terrorists facing the Indira Gandhi imposed emergency, where his editorials were not submitted for censorship. Virendra was amongst a handful of journalists who rebelled. They did not compromise on their ideals or that of journalism. I think that's pretty much it.
Very inspiring, and also, stories from the past are our best guides for the future, and hopefully, journalism will continue to be in good hands. And the phase that we are going through with fake news is perhaps not going to last us as long as good journalism should. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
It is
Thank you very much.
speak with you.
Thank you. I just want to say that this book is available on Amazon and in bookstores. And a little bit of marketing. We would really like it if you could help spread the word and also leave us a review, whether on Amazon or Goodreads or wherever, because an author's job is really not just about writing the book.
All the best for the book, and I'm sure people will pick up the book, and also others will wait for the translated copy as well. Thank you very much for being here, and all the best.
Thank you.
See everyone on next Saturday. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.